Howdy all, happy Tuesday. Hey, you know what? We're the only show in town. Everybody else is at their lake house. There's no TV shows, there's no radio shows. It's just us. So you better be coming and watching us during the summer because we're the only show in town.
Mike, I don't know if you should threaten the audience. Like we're friendlier than that, Mike.
Hey, I said it with a smile on my face. Okay.
So does the mafia. What does that mean?
Okay, couple things pre-show. And I don't know how many people out there are watching the World Cup. I'm watching it not really with – I mean, I'm not watching every game. It's just like when it's in the background. What's that?
Psychotic glee.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is it's like, if Team USA was in it, I'd be watching. And I'm not even though I'm Italian, I don't go back to, my roots to root for Team Italy. But I mean, I know some people who do. So, but they're not in it either.
You don't root for Team Italy? They had Giorgio Canaille back in the day, Mike.
yeah, back in 1972. They're great.
That's when I was a kid. He was playing. Just saying.
Dude, I remember him with the New York Cosmos. Anyway, Japan and Belgium yesterday. Usually, when a team gets up 2-0 in a World Cup game, it's over with. And Japan got up 2-0, and all the Japanese fans were going bonkers. This was like second half, and all of a sudden, Belgium, I think, they got 2 goals in like in the span of 15 minutes, tied up the game, and then won it in extra time. And the look of just being, I mean, the only thing I can associate it with, Anthony, is when you saw those videos of Leaf fans in 2013 after they had blown the 4-1 lead. That was the look on the Japanese fans' faces. It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
It's such a wild World Cup. I mean, my father-in-law and I were talking about it last weekend, and he was just like, I can't believe how much, the changes, the scoring. It's been amazing this year. And I'm like, yeah, it's been crazy. And yeah, that's actually a really good analogy in that case for the Japanese. It was just heart-wrenching.
Just the hollow devastation. But Russ, now you had something about the NBA, which I think
let's talk about the 5-team NBA, because like if you want to argue it, then you could argue it with Las Vegas too, because ever since the LeBron James signing for the Lakers, which was yesterday, here's the odds. So you've got Golden State 5-4. Like that's, they feel pretty good about Golden State winning it all with DeMarcus Cousins there. And, it's a weird thing about DeMarcus Cousins. I've not watched more than 2 minutes of his NBA career, but I do cover a thing called the NBA Rookie Photo Shoot. And that day, like, he was a good kid and he was good with kids. Like, I don't know what happened to him and his bad locker room presence and everything, but he signs with Golden State. Then
the funny thing is, I heard something about that this morning. It's like he was shocked because I think he was with New Orleans. Yeah. Nobody offered him nobody, not New Orleans, not anybody except Golden State, who called in at 10 minutes after and said, we'll give you the mid-level exception. And now, I mean, my God, that team, I don't care what LeBron does. That team's unbeatable.
I mean, nobody's unbeatable, but they're good. They're really, really good. Then you got Houston at 7-2, Philly at 7-2, Boston's 8-1, and the Lakers 12-1. And literally overnight, Cleveland goes to 50-1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's, again, you go from, you saw what that team is and what they're about to become. So,
but that's the whole thing. So
the thing I wonder again is it propped up by this belief that the Sixers are somehow, some way going to be able to acquire Kawhi Leonard? I think if they don't acquire Leonard, I wonder if those odds begin to dip. But then again, you look at the rest of the teams.
I think Boston would move ahead.
Boston would leapfrog them, yes. But that has to be Vegas thinking that Philly is hell-bent on and will somehow get Leonard at least for the year.
Yeah, but the question is, though, is that right now it seems like Popovich is not going to trade Kawhi Leonard to the Lakers out of spite because he wants to go there. They think they got him over a barrel and they're not offering him what he thinks is fair value. So just to piss Kawhi Leonard off, he's going to trade him to the East so he can't team up with LeBron. So at least he gets a return. And then next year, he walks and probably goes to the Lakers.
But here's the thing. But the basic point is, like, competitive balance in that league is non-existent.
Oh, yeah.
And the commissioner seems powerless. Like, there are like 3 players running that league. Like, to me, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, has LeBron taken over running the Lakers now?
Well, I mean, Magic can move aside. Magic can might as well just be a figurehead at this point because, like, what is he going to say to LeBron that LeBron is not going to, that LeBron's not going to override him on or go to ownership with? Like,
He's already got him locked under contract. It's like not like not once he's signed. It's like you can say, well, okay, we'll do some of the things you want. We're not doing everything.
No. I don't think you get to do that in the NBA, Mike. I think LeBron again is pretty much the ASGM. We'll say that.
Yeah. Okay. And just one other thing
You
before.
Want to add anything?
What's that?
Add anything about LeBron being like?
Add anything about LeBron? Well, in my perspective, I never thought. I was always very dubious on the Sixers even being in the conversation there. I just don't think they're far enough along as a team, and also LeBron was probably again looking at his long-term prospects in Los Angeles, with so many things tying him there anyway. So I didn't think Leonard was a different story, but again, once Leonard lets it known that he wants to go to LA, it makes things a bit more difficult in this circumstance from the Sixers' perspective. And I do wonder in some ways whether or not the fact that, and everybody's like, oh, well, the Sixers have Brett Brown and he's familiar with him. But I'm like, if he's sour on the Spurs, right? Mm-hmm. Brown's got a long-standing connection with the Spurs. I often wonder whether or not that plays against the Sixers in some ways, because again, is it going to be for him as you look at it? Well, he's loyal to Pop, so it's more the same. That the relationship between him and Pop is what it is now. I wonder if he's just going to be resistant to that idea out of spite anyway. I don't know. Again, it does to me. I don't think it's likely they're going to get either guy. They were obviously lost LeBron, but I don't think they're going to get. I doubt they're going to get Leonard, and I think their odds will probably drop into number 4 once that occurs.
Okay. The last thing I'll say is that, Mike, you could add whatever you want. Like with LeBron signing every few years now, whether he's returning to Cleveland or signing somewhere else or whatever, to me it diminishes his legacy. I don't care how good he is on the court. Right. Michael Jordan played for one other team when it was obvious he was on the back 9 and he was just going to be able to finish out with them. Sure. He didn't decide where he was going to go every 3 years. He could have, though. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could have. Dr. J could have. These guys didn't do that, though.
No, I mean that's one of the problems I have with LeBron. I mean, first of all, I have a problem with LeBron because I hear about him every single second from ESPN. They have it's like Tim Tebow or anything else. It's 24/7.
Tim Tebow's an all-star, Mike. Don't rip him.
It's like 24/7 LeBron. I'm sick and tired of hearing. But the thing is, he's a mercenary. He's been this is the third. I mean, first, he leaves Cleveland for Miami. Then he goes back to Cleveland because Miami was getting old and slow. He wins a title in Cleveland. And now he's going to cash in and make big money in Hollywood and be getting into the movies. And that's all fine and good. But please don't tell me he's as good as Michael Jordan, because he's not. It really. And I have problems with it. And there's a camp that loves Jordan and there's a camp that loves LeBron. LeBron's a fantastic player, but he is not Michael Jordan and never will be. And yes, I know Tim Tebow is a AA All-Star, and he'll be on the Mets in September, Russ, because nobody will be going to Citi Field unless it's to see Tim Jesus Tebow.
I hope not, but we'll see.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Eklund will be with us in a few minutes. We have to start with, and I titled the show "Karlsson on the Move?" ? Because in the last 24 hours after I have to say it, the offer that they basically made just for the sake of making an offer that the Ottawa Senators made to Karlsson over on Sunday. All of a sudden now, in the last 24 hours, the Senators have granted permission to teams to talk to Karlsson about signing an extension. And then once there is an agreement in principle, they will try to arrange a trade of Erik Karlsson to that team. Now, I don't know whether this is going to be something where it's going to be Bobby Ryan included, or it's going to be just singularly Karlsson. But to my mind, I mean, I don't think Erik Karlsson's ever playing another game as an Ottawa Senator. What do you think?
I'll agree with you on that, but the it does seem like it's tied to Bobby Ryan no matter what. Because if you look at it from Ottawa's perspective, you really want Erik Karlsson, well, then you're going to take the Ryan contract. Now, look, Bobby Ryan's still going to score you 25 goals, but at $7.2 million for the next 3 years, not many teams are going to want to pay for that. But to get Erik Karlsson, somebody's going to do it. And so this is the only way that Ottawa can get out from under and leverage all this. Look, if I were the New York Rangers, I would steer clear of it. And actually, I'm not sure they're actually interested. Like, this is the first offseason where really there's no market for the Rangers in free agency. There's very little market in trading. And, you know, some of their writers, I think, are a little bored with that and so are hoping that they're in on Karlsson. But for them to do this would really mess up their long-term plans, because here's the thing. Let's just do it this way. Let's just say they try and get Erik Karlsson, right? Clearly, they're not going to be a Stanley Cup team this year. They won't be. Defense isn't good enough, not enough forwards, even if you make a couple more pickups. So then next year, which is, you know, year 2 of the last 3 years, we assume, of like Henrik Lundqvist's career, or if he's going to extend maybe another year or two, are you really going to be a cup contender in 2 years? That's only if rookies hit well and they make another pickup. So really, you're looking at a 3-year plan just to make it back to the cup for Lundqvist, and you can't bankrupt the franchise for that. So I don't see why the Rangers would do it.
Anthony, this is the thing I have a problem with. If Pierre Dorian is asking for, if he's trying to trade Karlsson and attach Bobby Ryan to him, if the talk is out there and the talk is basically that Karlsson's going to ask for what Drew Doughty got, which is $11 million times the 8-year max. Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about for the next 4 years, a team taking on $18.25 million in salary, and also being able to fit that under the cap. So you're talking about giving up assets and fit almost one full quarter of the cap under the cap. I don't see there's a team out there that can do it.
It's going to be it's going to be exceedingly difficult. And I know we've had, again, in Philadelphia, already had to deal with this within the last hour or so since, you know, the speculation began about, you know, oh, the Flyers should be in on Karlsson. They got the cap space and everything else. Well, if you're attaching Bobby Ryan to the mix, of course, that's a whole.
That makes it dubious, right there.
That's a whole subtext in and of itself.
It is.
You know, from Philadelphia's perspective. So that's not going to happen, especially if they've already just acquired James Van Riemsdyk in the same spot. So I just don't see that unless you're including Wayne Simmons going back the other way to Ottawa. And of course, I don't know if it's not that far away from obviously where Simmons grew up, but I don't think Simmons is looking to get moved to Ottawa at this point. He would want to go to a contending team. They would want to do that as well. So from my perspective, at least from Philadelphia, I just don't see it in terms of assets, in terms of what Ottawa is going to be asking. The idea, of course, someone asked me, said, well, they're not the cost won't be as much if you add, you know, Ryan to the deal. And it's like, it still doesn't, I don't think it jives with what Philadelphia is doing. I think the optics for Philly changed for some fans the minute the JVR signing occurred. Well, maybe the Flyers are going to be going all in now. I think that was a well-placed, perfect slot for JVR. He slid in perfectly to a need for Philadelphia. They're willing to pay a little bit more. Karlsson, I'm having a tough time envisioning that happening.
Well, this is the thing. If Ottawa is intent on attaching Ryan to this deal, then they would have to take significantly less back in the deal in terms of assets, because you're narrowing the scope of what teams.
Less. It won't be significantly less.
Well, it would have to be, Russ, because to take the Rangers for example. If first of all, Ottawa does not want to take salary back. The whole purpose of getting rid of Bobby Ryan.
They're going to take some, because obviously they're going to lose a ton.
Well, right now they would lose. I think Karlsson was making 6.5 and Ryan was making 7.25. So it's 13 million. Yeah, they would have to take back salary, but the problem is they'd want to take back salary on a short-term basis and not on a long-term basis. Because
so let's say it's the Rangers, right? I think the Rangers would offer them Kevin Hayes, which they'd have to work out a deal with, which again, he'll make $5 million. They'll pay that, right? Then you'll have to give him either Elias Anderson or Cheadle. It's going to be one of those guys, and Brady Shea. Like, is that really worth it to the New York Rangers to do that? I say no. I just think it's too much. And Philly, no disrespect to Paul Holmgren, but if they were to pick him up, that's a Holmgren era move. That's not a
exactly that would be a move. I mean, it's one thing. I would agree with that. It's very much a Holmgren would be a move that if they were all in and pushing all their cards to the table. I think the Flyers are definitely looking to push the needle here with JVR. That pushes them forward, but it's still incremental. I still think it's a way to nod to the. It's a nod as much to the core players like Giroux and Voracek who are reaching primes of their career. They think they can push it. Then they can push it a little bit. I think Karlsson, especially if you add on Ryan, it's just that's all your caps for Philadelphia. That's it. That's the remaining cap space that they would have.
It would seem like a Vegas-y kind of situation, but the fact that McPhee didn't want to add on, the term recently that James Neal got makes me think he's not into a deal like this. You know who a team that would do this with would be? The Vancouver Canucks. They would do this. They have a lot of cap space. They've got youth to trade.
Yeah.
And they've got hungry fans. And this has the Canucks just written all over them, if you ask me.
Yeah, but the problem is that, well, I mean, this hasn't been a problem for them because they keep doing it.
Right.
Right. Which is just dumb. I mean, this is a deal that puts a capper on a team that puts them from like sort of contender to contender. If you add a scorer like Ryan and you add a player like Karlsson, but they're nowhere close to being a contender. Then this deal doesn't even get them in the playoffs, let alone make them a contender. So I mean,
yeah,
well, but that's not the way they would sell it, Mike. And
no, of course not. But they're wrong.
Whatever. But I'm just saying this is a team that after the loss of the Sedins could come out and say, all right, we've sort of remade this team, and now this is what we've done, and they would be a competitive team. They would be. Now, how competitive? I don't know.
Now, here's a question. Now, that's this. There's another possibility that we'll take into account here also. Even though it's, especially with the public relationship that they've taken recently in losing John Tavares, is it possible that the Islanders would get into the bidding? Now, I know BD Galoff has mentioned the fact online that for Hockey Buzz that's a that they're going to be in strongly on Karlsson and Trump.
Yeah, it would get them to the cap floor. So I do think the Islanders are.
But also from a public relations standpoint, again, after losing Tavares, getting Karlsson in the mix puts positive buzz back on a team that is continuing to grow, and again would make the Metro just a fascinating. It's already a fascinating mix.
But the problem with this deal is, and I do think both are attached, and I think Lou would definitely bristle at the Ryan part, but might have to just deal with it. Here's the thing. They get those guys, they're out of the Hughes running. Like that, that makes them just good enough to be out of the real running for Jack Hughes. And so I don't know if this fits in Lou's plans. It just fits in the cap space. You know what I mean? That's the part we don't know.
And knowing Lou, I mean, he probably could flip Ryan someplace else.
Yeah.
Like if they made that deal, that's a possibility. And yes, it would take some of the heat off of the organization.
You also need to sell Karlsson the same way that you had to try to sell Tavares.
That's a tough sell. It is.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem, Anthony. We were talking with Kevin Allen yesterday, and the thing was, it's like, I mean, he said the same problems that Tavares had with Long Island with the Islanders, and that's somebody who was invested in that franchise for 9 years, is the same problem that probably would prevent Karlsson from approving a deal to the Islanders. I mean, would you want to play in two buildings? Would you want, the chaos of what's going on with the Islanders? And I mean, we know it's calm compared to the crap that is going on in Ottawa, but it's like from the frying pan into the fire. I don't know whether he would improve that. So, I mean, and the thing is, it's like everybody keeps mentioning Vegas, and I keep thinking of looking at that situation and saying, okay, for Ottawa to do the deal with Vegas would have to give up a number of young assets, and they don't have a lot of young assets. This
Cody
is a team.
Probably is, and I know they've been wanting Cody Glass. I know Russ knows this as well. Vegas is not wanting to part with him. Can't blame them.
Right. I mean, maybe they would trade Brandstrom, defenseman, in the deal. Maybe they would trade a first round pick, but they're not. I mean, I saw something where Shea Theodore would be involved, and I'm like, okay, but this.
Yeah, that's possible.
Sorry. Yeah, but I mean, I also saw another thing from Mike Tracos, who covers the Leafs. Just putting it out there. It's like, oh, what about William Nylander and a first-round pick and something? And like the absolute last place that the Ottawa Senators and Eugene Melnyk and Pierre Dorian is going to trade Erik Karlsson or anybody who is of value to that team is to the Maple Leafs, because that's a team that Ottawa fans absolutely despise. And if you want pitchforks and sticks with fire on them, that's what's going to happen if they traded Erik Karlsson to Toronto. So that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I do have a dark horse for you, and I think, again, I talked about this the other day, and because there was so much focus on LeBron. If you look at what the Devils did first couple of days of free agency, they did almost nothing. Right. They signed minor leaguers. They did almost zero because half their organization was across the country. Now that they're back, would Josh Harris ask Shiro to make a big splash because they have $23 million in cap space? He might.
Possible.
I was a little underwhelmed with what the Devils did in the simple fact that I thought that was where JVR was going to go. I mean, it made a lot of sense.
Being the talking,
Because JVR, we heard New Jersey, we heard Arizona was very much in the mix.
Right.
Term-wise, the word was both of those deals, I think, were supposedly in the 7-year variety for JVR, but they didn't offer. They didn't offer obviously the dollars on the deal that Philadelphia's did.
But right now, New Jersey's got an underwhelming roster and 4 RFAs. This could serve them, and maybe they would trade, one of the RFAs too.
For Karlsson, you're talking about in this.
Yeah, for Karlsson.
I mean, it's a definite. I mean, no question, it would be a huge move for them if they were able to accomplish that.
Now, after this initial 2-day thrust when it came to free agency, if you look at the list of available free agents, it's very, very underwhelming. It's like, I think that trades are going to be the way that teams are going to go right now to find. I'm sure there will be a free agent signed here or there, but here's the list of players. I'll just go through, say a dozen of them. Rick Nash is basically in semi-retirement right now. Although I have to say this, he didn't close the door to him coming back later in the season. It sounds sort of like a Matt Sundin scenario where he comes back in January if he's feeling well.
Well, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like the Peter Forsberg scenario without the fake injury that year. Right.
And now we know he's had concussion problems in the past. And a lot of people gave him credit for, being upfront because he had apparently he had a 3-year deal in line for pretty mucho bucks. And he said, I can't say for sure I'm going to be healthy enough to play. So he took himself off the market. But if he comes around, say Christmas or January, and, sort of reads the landscape and signs on with a team that he thinks can win, then he could go back to Boston. I wouldn't rule it out because of the 1-year money that they have available.
He doesn't need money. Rick Nash. No,
I know, but I'm saying, Russ, he's not going to play for free. I'm sure he'll probably try to get as much.
No, but he wants to win a cup, so he might play for very little.
Right, and if that's the case, then his hometown team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. That might be, the prospect of playing on the left side with either Matthews or Tavares and playing for Babcock, who he's played for before. That is a possibility.
Sure. He doesn't play defense, but he doesn't play the defensive position. He plays defense, but it would help.
Right. No. And as we talked about yesterday, that's going to be the focus of the Leafs right now. Kerry Lettinen, and this is from Cap Friendly based on what they made last year. Kerry Lettinen did not get signed for any of these teams who was looking for a 1B or a backup. So I get the feeling, Russ, that he's going to be one of these guys who may have to wait till August or September as a training camp invite.
Yeah, he's probably in that market right now. If he gets a job at all, like teams might just say, you know what, Kerry, we've seen enough of you, and unless we have 2 or 3 injuries, we're just not going to call you. He could be in that spot. He's not an old guy, but he's got a lot of mileage on him, and I don't think he's on anybody's speed dial.
He's been injured. I mean, listen, he's got a long laundry list of injuries throughout his career. It's going to be tough for him. In many ways, I look at his situation, and I kind of wonder when Michael Neuwirth reaches the end of his deal with Philadelphia, if he's also pending on what happens. It's more of a microcosm thing because, again, Neuwirth has always been sort of a 1A, 1B situation, whereas Lettinen, up until they made the Bishop deal, Lettinen's always been sort of the number one, been viewed as a number one. So we don't know. It's going to be tough.
And as we discussed with Peter when he's been on the show, there definitely was a falling out between Tobias Enstrom and the Winnipeg Jets. He's 33 years old. His skills were declining, but I mean, he was looked upon as a top 4 in Winnipeg. I don't know whether, I know he wants to stay in the NHL. It's been made clear via social media that he does, but he's out there, and for teams looking for defense, that might be a short-term answer, but I don't know. I mean, do you think Tobias Enstrom gets an NHL job, Russ?
I guess he's a defenseman. Somebody will give him, he can run a power play. So yeah, he'll get a job.
Anthony?
I think he will, but it's one of those things where it may go later. Again, it's going to be a later in the summer thing, and it's going to have to be a match. I know from Philadelphia's perspective right now, they're running at 6 defensemen right now. They're definitely going to be looking for probably a veteran defenseman at a certain point. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would be Enstrom per se, but I don't think they would probably say no to it if they view him as a 6th to 7th defenseman at this point versus a 4. So that's where I think teams have to sort of match and see where he would fit. But anybody who watched him in the postseason or late last season could see the tread has really gotten long on the tires for him.
2 guys in the same boat. They were traded to be bought out, and now they're free agents, Brooks Orpik and Steve Mason. There's been a lot of connection to Orpik going back to the Capitals and basically being signed for what he lost in terms of the buyout, because I think it was like $1.5 million he loses on the buyout, and then they would sign him for $1.5 million to make everything even.
This is the greatest of cap circumventions too, because
truth.
Because he literally had to get somewhere else, sent somewhere else to launder his contract. I don't know any other way of putting it. Mm-hmm. To launder his contract to be able to come back to the same team, even though the rules were explicitly written that a guy can't do that. So clearly, the CBA wasn't written as well as we hoped.
Russ, can you do that in Leo Getz's voice from Lethal Weapon? He's now
Leo Getz. Well, no, the thing is, nobody foresaw teams being willing to trade for a player that they would buy out. I mean, Washington couldn't buy him out and then re-sign him, but they can trade him someplace else and they buy him out so Washington can re-sign. That's why I'm thinking, is there a chance that he doesn't go back to Washington? I mean, was he on board with this buyout? I mean, that's the thing. If he re-signs with Washington, this was some sort of
if he re-signs with Washington, clearly he was on board with it.
Does he go back to Pittsburgh? Does he go to Pittsburgh?
That's what that was the first team I thought of was Pittsburgh, or a team out there that's looking for defensive help. And I don't think he fits with Toronto because, I just think he's too slow, but he can't.
I can guarantee you one thing though. If it's Philadelphia, Flyer fans are going to lose. They're going to lose their cookies because they're going to look at Dave Haxel and say Haxel's going to plug him right in against everybody else.
Absolutely, he will. Mike, he can't be any slower than Roman Polak. He's not.
I think he is.
Same guy. He's the same guy, but actually,
Roman Polak is right-handed.
Whatever. In the playoffs, Orpik played fairly well, actually. In the Stanley Cup run, he actually played fairly well.
Yeah, I just think no, that's not going to happen. Paul Martin is probably
doesn't happen.
Paul Martin is slower than Brooks Orpik, so we won't go there. Jason Garrison, I don't think played a game for Vegas, so that's not happening. Is Tyler Ennis's career over at 28 years old?
It could be.
Could be. That's possible.
He's a shame too. He was a heck of a player.
Got the bite in the first couple days.
Yeah.
Somebody may take a look at him late, but he's another classic.
He's an ATO. He has speed, but you don't know what else is going.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We talked about this after the Caps won, and Smith Pelly made such a difference. He was an ATO. He was signed for $800. I think it was $800,000. You're going to have copycat GMs looking at the market and saying, "I'll give Tyler Ennis a chance and hope that he's the next Smith Pelly." Now they're different type of players, but hope that he's the next Smith Pelly and scores me 15 goals or whatever. Like Lee Stempniak a few years ago. I think Jersey signed him. He had a good year. They traded him to Boston for a second and a third round pick. It's a no lose situation. It's a contract, so I think he'll probably get a look-see. Nikolai Kuleman's going to the KHL. Alexei Emelin.
We'll really miss him.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure. Alexei Emelin is 32 years old, and Nashville said bye-bye. Again, veteran defenseman. Does he go back to Montreal? Is there something like that a possibility?
No.
Okay. Jeez. From that expansive answer, I'll say no.
I wanted to just give it full thought before I gave an answer.
There you go. Well, now, Russ, the Rangers, did they get a backup for Lundqvist?
What does that mean, Mike? Can you be more specific? That didn't sound right.
Well, I mean, do they have, other than was it Georgiev? Do they have a legitimate?
Do they have a backup goalie?
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, it didn't come out sounding like that. Ant knows what I'm talking about. All right.
Not.
Yeah, they did sign a backup goalie. Who did they sign? What's his name? Mizanek is probably their backup goalie.
Well, I mean, because there has been some speculation that Robin Lehner might be.
I don't think so.
No?
I mean, here's the speculation, okay? People are saying that because Lehner's dad is a goalie coach for Lundqvist when he hangs out in Sweden. But end of the day, they have Mizanek and they have Georgiev. They're a team that doesn't expect to make the playoffs. Why are they spending money on Robin Lehner? Seriously.
Okay.
Well, I have one other more pertinent question, though, Russ. You're in the middle of having a conversation involving Lundqvist, yet you have a Burger King cup in your hand there.
Because I was thirsty.
I know, but it's a subtext.
The king. Don't mess with the king.
I was like, that's pretty good stuff.
That's subliminal. There you go.
That was maybe subliminal because there was nothing meant to do that. And I wasn't summoning Howard Eskin either.
Thank goodness.
3 veteran defensemen. Which one do you think will get snagged first? Kevin Bieksa, 37 years old, but right-handed. Josh Georges, who, to my mind, was the last couple of years was a wasteland in Buffalo. I mean, I don't think he's got much left. Or Dan Hamhuis with Dallas, who scored 24 points last year and averaged over 20 minutes. I'd say Hamhuis.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
definitely.
And Hamhuis is, look, if Dan Hamhuis couldn't skate a bit and get some points, his career would have been over 2 or 3 years ago. But he is riding out this offensive defenseman career to the nth degree. He really is.
Yeah, no, this is the interesting thing. They say 4 teams are in on Joel Ward. Joel Ward's 37 years old. I
like his grit, Mike.
Yeah, geez. But I don't think he can keep up with the play anymore.
I mean, for short spurts in a game, he can, and they like the energy. And again, I think when Tom Wilson showed you what Tom Wilson could do during the Stanley Cup run, that made other teams say, it's not bad to still have a Wilson-ish guy around, and Joel Ward is that guy.
Now, apparently the pursuit of Calvin DeHaan is getting hot and heavy. David Pagnotta, the fourth period, reported that at least 4 teams, including the Islanders and including Toronto, are in pursuit of him. Now, the thing I have, he's 27 years old. Russ, you've seen him more than I have. I mean, what I've seen him, he's an okay defenseman, but he's not somebody I think is a difference maker. He was out for over half of the season last year with a shoulder injury. So this is a sort of a big unknown. I mean, I'm thinking he's probably going to be, he's asking for multi-year at probably around $4 million a year. And I don't know whether he's worth that. What do you think?
He's better than Chris Russell. I mean, he's a good skater, a really good skater, still has a great first pass, and he's very solid in his own end. And those are the big things. He's not the offensive defenseman that, we all thought he could be when he was in juniors to now, right? He changed. But with the change, he became a very reliable defenseman. That's why teams want him, because he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's smart on the ice. So I think any of those teams would be lucky to get him. I think the Islanders will be last on the list to be able to land him, because now without Tavares there, the only way he's going to the island is if they give him like 2 years more than everybody else. Otherwise, again, I just don't see him going there. I know the Flyers had interest in him, but I think the price is too high for them now, so I think they're out.
It's not, again, for Philly. It's, again, not as much about cap hit for them. It's about term. And I think
the term will be bad.
I said this the other day. The minute I saw the John Moore deal with
oh my God.
At that point, I said, Flyers are going to be out on DeHaan. There's no DeHaan's saying wants 5 years.
Well, what I can't believe about that one, Anthony and Russ, we'll take some questions from the chat room in the next couple of minutes. So put your questions in there and we'll answer.
They have been doing it.
What I can't believe is Moore got 5 years.
That's you got in that. That's why I said at that point.
He scored 10 goals.
My initial thought was the thing that was going to hurt Philly in terms of defensive market. Initially, I thought was going to be the Mike Green contract. But it's not about it's not about the money, it's about the term. And the minute Moore gets 5 years, it's just like this has gone well beyond the pale at this point.
No, I like I said, I think since there's a bidding war going on, that DeHaan's probably going to get 3, 4, maybe 5 years because he's 27. And to my mind, if the rumors are true that Toronto's in on it, the thing I look at because of the way they have to piece things together down the road, I think that if they sign DeHaan for 4 years, then either Zaitsev or Gardner are probably gone because they're paying DeHaan probably to either replace one of them or take the place of if they trade somebody like Zaitsev. But
here's the thing about Moore, right? So. He's still only 27. That weighs in his favor. 2 years ago, he had 12 goals. Last year, he had 7. But, again, is he going to get that opportunity on some of the – who did he sign with again?
Boston,
right. Is he going to get power play opportunity with Boston?
No.
So
he's a bottom pairing guy on Boston.
He'll get power play opportunity in the event of injury. That's probably
right.
He's a bottom pairing guy on Boston.
They signed him on the basis of his defense, which I still think is okay.
Okay. Before we take questions, Russ, you were saying something about Kevin Hayes and his place on the Rangers.
Yeah, so Kevin Hayes is that guy because he had 25 goals, is now what everybody would see in like the $5 million range, right? And he's an RFA. I don't think the Rangers want to pay him $5 million because if they did, they'd have had him signed already, right? He led their team in goals. They clearly seem like they want to move away from him or want to keep him at a lower price. So what do you do with a Kevin Hayes? Because in this era, like he's a guy that could score 20, 25 goals on a lot of teams every year. Does that mean he's a terrific player? I don't think so. Because the hockey sense is not great, but he is big and he skates well and he's not that physical. And so you look at him and you're like he's a poor man's JVR. And a poor man's JVR can make $5 million, and he can make $5 million on a team that desperately needs goals, or gets included in some sort of trade with a team that desperately needs goals who could sign him. So there's probably a market for him, and I still think the Rangers are going to trade him. I would be surprised if they keep him, but if they keep him, boy, I don't know if they'd go much over $5 million. That's the thing per year, and he's going to want 5 years, and that they might just offer him a bridge deal. This may be one of those classic. Even though Jeff Gordon is there, Glenn Sader type of bridge deals where, hey, we're giving you 2 years, whatever.
A bridge deal to UFA and then he walks.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Boy. I mean, that's bad asset management. But go ahead, Anthony.
There's one other. I don't know if we mentioned it all earlier, Mike. Not one other signing, of course, which occurred today, but out of league, Nail Yakupov.
Yeah.
Has moved on to. He's going to be on initially was reported as a 2-year deal, but it's only 1 year. With Scott St. Petersburg. So he's on his way to Russia to basically be St. Petersburg's replacement for Ilya Kovalchuk. So
yeah. Well, in a way, it's a skating upgrade.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely going to get skating. And I'm curious to see how he looks on a line with Pavel Datsyuk for sure.
And that's the thing. It's like, I mean, there was an indication last week that he was still looking to stay in the NHL. But if he goes out and he puts up big numbers playing with Datsyuk with Ska, then NHL teams will come calling next year because it's a literally no risk move because they can sign him as a UFA.
I can see this being like if Yakupov gets like 30 goals, they can make the Russian version of Rocky, and Pavel Datsyuk is like Mickey, and he's bringing along the former Russian star here. Like, there's a good story here. This is good Russian cinema right here.
Yeah, but who's Drago? Never mind.
Maybe Drago is Ilya Kovalchuk because Kovalchuk bumps into Yakupov on his way in while Kovalchuk's leaving the locker room, you know?
Okay. That was a rage. Okay. We got some questions in the chat.
We have questions. Okay. Are the Bruins, this is from Kevin, are the Bruins done, or what other moves do you see them making prior to the season? I think the Bruins are done. I think the John Moore thing was the most that they're going to get. They put in their Tavares offer. They didn't get it because if they had gotten it, they would have to have done other things to sort of, make it work.
They would have to traded Krejci probably.
Yeah. So I don't think they're doing anything else. Do you guys?
I think. Go ahead, Anthony.
Or they wait till late summer to see how, checking in on Rick Nash again, just to see how he's feeling.
Okay.
Feels a little bit better and wants to maybe join up. That's a possibility, but I agree with Ross. I think Moore's probably the end of their game for them right now.
I know that Ack mentioned yesterday, and I saw that the name of Skinner was attached to the Bruins. And you got to remember they traded a first round pick to get Nash and to fill a spot on the wing. Now we know that they got some good young forwards in Bjork and Rebecca Karlsson that could come up, but they seem to think that they needed another veteran guy. And if they still are of the mindset of that, like on a second line, then maybe they make a pitch for Skinner. But I don't see them.
Rebecca Karlsson did not have the greatest year. I watched him in the playoffs, and he was okay. I didn't see a lot of him, but I saw him a couple times.
Right.
I don't think he's ready.
Which leans towards them, maybe going out and signing somebody for a year.
Ready. Bjork will play.
Right.
Okay. All right. So another question is, what is Ken? And this is from Mike. Is Ken Holland still trying to move Gustav Nyquist? I don't think so. It's in the last year of a deal. I think they have to. They're another team that has to reach the cap floor. He'll get traded at the trade deadline because it's his last year. That's what will happen with Gustav Nyquist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them signing him long term because I think the last few years he's sort of been up and down and been a little bit of a disappointment. And if he has a good year this year, they can turn around and get, they're still in the mindset of adding first round picks and building, which again makes me scratch my head that they re-signed Green and brought in Vanek and Bernier. It's sort of going at cross purposes, but I don't think they're going to hold on to Nyquist past this year. So I agree with Russ. I think they'll hold on to him and then probably trade him at the deadline.
So this next question is from Matt Everly. With Ian Cole receiving $4.25 million a year as a third pairing D-man, what do you think DeHaan will settle for as a free agent? I think DeHaan would settle for the same sort of thing, 4.25 for 4 years, but he's looking for 5 years.
Yeah,
I think that's what he would settle for. I think if you look at it, Cole's a little more successful right now. That's it's not really DeHaan's fault, right? I mean,
but Cole was the beneficiary of Colorado having a lot of cap space.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I mean, I think if DeHaan goes to a certain situation, like Toronto, where, he maybe wants to go because his buddy Tavares is there, he might have to take a little less or a little shorter term. But I think he's going to go for the gusto. I mean, I think if there's a deal out there for 4 or 5 years and for four and a quarter, he's going to take that rather than taking 4 times 3 or something like that from Toronto.
You have to be careful though, because we don't know with DeHaan, how bad the shoulder is and how I haven't heard anything about it. And you don't want this to be a Jeff Finger deal. You don't.
No.
The 21st century of Jeff Finger deal.
Well, it wasn't Jeff Finger. Jeff Finger wasn't an injury problem. Jeff Finger was a problem that he stunk. He was not a good.
Yeah, but didn't he get hurt though at the end?
No.
I know he just stunk. I knew that.
He was just naturally bad. It wasn't because of injury.
Well, and I'm just, you know what it is? I'm really thinking. I'm thinking the DeHaan injury could turn him into Jeff Finger. That's how my mind works. But
what was that, Anthony?
That's versus artificially bad,
Better versus artificially bad.
Naturally bad versus artificially bad.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Russ, I heard that Slava Voinov will be traded. Do you see him as a fit for the Leafs? I don't want Mike to answer. It would make me laugh if the Toronto Maple Leafs trade for Slava Voinov, but they're not going to do that. Now, do we know 100% that the Kings are going to trade his rights? I mean, we hear rumors that Voinov doesn't want to play there.
No, it's that they
reputable reporters have already said already that the Kings have no interest in.
Okay, so they don't have any interest, so they're going to trade him.
Moving on from him. Yep.
So would the New York Islanders take on Slava Voinov? They probably would.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Wait, Lou hasn't had any guys that have had any checkered
That's a lot of bullets. Lou's a bullet sponge, but I don't know if those are the bullets he wants coming at him.
Yeah, Brian Burke was a GM in the NHL. I would say he would give Slava Voinov a second chance. I don't know, Russ. I mean, there's something. I don't think that Kyle Dubas would follow up the public relations bonanza of signing Tavares with the with the hit of taking Voinov, but a right-hand shot, 28 years old, a guy who's won 2 Stanley Cups, and you probably only have to give up, like, a 3rd-round pick to get his rights. They might.
They might. I will say only because Jeff Gordon said recently that he wants character guys, that the Rangers are out. But we did see back in the day, like the Rangers and Flyers were both in and both had Billy Tibbetts. So I think both of them, though, it's a different era for them, and neither would be interesting.
Different era, but the concern I think I have from Philadelphia's perspective is, again, they're at 60 right now. Loren's not going to be available till February. I don't think they're inclined to bring up Myers just yet, maybe mid-season or so.
Right.
But it's not me with any kind of inside knowledge of any kind here, but based off the fact that, Hextall does know Voinov, and right hand, he kind of fits in for Philadelphia in terms if you were in a vacuum. But I think they have to be very, very keenly aware of the optics of if Philadelphia would do that. I don't see it happening.
I mean, there might be some team out there, and think about this. There might be a team that says, okay, we'll take him on. And, we'll take him on for a year, and if he plays well, we can flip him at the deadline and get something good for a defenseman who, but it is taking a lot of bullets. It is taking a lot of PR hit.
I think Detroit would be interested in him. I do.
Buffalo.
I think Buffalo. I think Florida. I think there's a few teams out there that are definitely going to come calling, and it's going to make people mad. And,
yes,
again, look,
are you willing? I mean, again, this is basically, there's even more,
this is the thing.
It's everybody a situation. It is.
Everybody knows in Toronto that Toronto needs to improve their defense to be a contender. There will be a hit if they went this way. There would be an immediate hit if they did this. But the fans would say, okay, well, he's got flies on him, but he is a good defenseman. And if he's still good, then I think the concerns and the heat will sort of subside. And that's sad to say, but I think I would not advocate this. I think it would sort of put a pall on the off season, but I do think there's a possibility.
I even looked into it yesterday to see how he could have made this happen for good behavior, but apparently 45 days of his 90-day jail sentence was good behavior because he didn't get into any trouble. Believe it or not, whether we agree with it or not, that's how it's working. And that's
it wasn't that it was dismissed. Apparently, that was
it wasn't dismissed.
Yeah, he was just like given, time off for good behavior type of thing, I guess. So
and that's the crazy part of this, and that's look, none of us are happy about it.
Yeah,
and he is gonna. You know what the thing is? He is going to end up on somebody's favorite team. And, Anthony could speak to that, having Michael Vick on his team, that it caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, just the first thing I was thinking of there. And I didn't say it, but that's the first example that popped in my head was Vick. This is maybe even on an even higher, another level in this circumstance because of the details circumstance. It's tough. It's just, and again, you're talking to prior to 2014 and what happened. You're talking to a person who I think was as much of a Slava Voinov fan in terms of his overall game as anybody you would find.
Right.
But that to me is just what the report and everything there was beyond the pale. I want nothing to do with him.
Okay, Russ. So
I wouldn't want anything to do with
him.
it.
One or two more.
Yep. Philip asks, do we think Anthony Duclair will wait till training camp or sign or consider a two-way deal? I think he's going to have to consider anything because right now there is this rap that he's got to get past with other teams, and somebody has to be willing to give him a chance. I think he's a decent kid. Like I know he can play this game. I wish there would be a team out there would actually give him some ice time. Because if you give him ice time, he will produce points. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to wait for the ATO. And the thing is, he's going to have to wait for that because, you know, he's got a reputation now. You can't avoid it. I mean, New York to Arizona to Chicago, it's like, you know, he had that one good year with Arizona, and then all of a sudden he was a problem, and then he goes to Chicago and they don't qualify him. So now there's a stigma attached to him, and he's going to have to shake that off to continue his career, and that's going to be tough.
And to me, looking at him, it's just he's very much your classic top six or bust kind of guy, and most teams are looking to fill in their bottom six. So the one big knock that I think we've had on Duclair is the fact that he doesn't come back particularly hard defensively. Well, if he's going to be in a bottom six role, he's got to be willing to play the full 200 feet. And if he doesn't, that's gonna be an issue for him in terms.
Now, a player of similar reputation is Josh Hosang, and I don't know whether. I mean, obviously, I don't think his antics with an organization with Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz are going to work. But we know that Lou will give second chances, and I'm just wondering whether he's somebody that we will see moved before next season, or if he gets another chance with the Islanders. Russ, what do you think on that?
Who will get another chance with the Islanders? I was looking up
Hosang.
A good question. It depends. It really depends on what Lou's son's opinion is of him, and I've never heard him comment on it. I never heard Chris come out in public and say anything, because now whatever Garth Snow said about him doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
What Chris thinks of him matters. I guess the fact that he's still there must make me think that he's going to give him another chance.
Yeah, but it's July 3rd. I mean, they could very easily move him in a deal in the next 2 days or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
I don't have a great feel for it. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah. All right. Anthony,
I got one last one because this is a really good one.
Okay.
This is a really good one. Mike, where did you get that shirt? No, that's not the question. I'm just kidding.
The Gap.
The Gap. Who would have guessed Mike shops at the Gap? That's crazy.
I'm stylish, man.
All right. This one, I can't tell you who asked the question because now the chat. Oh, here it is. It's from BCHAV. It's not Cousin Eddie in incognito because he goes under the Kyle Dubas burner account, and I still don't know why he does that. But anyhow, this question is:
he's gonna love the mention.
Anything on Tyson Barrie, or is he a lock? And here's the funny thing about Tyson Barrie: he's got 2 more years of $5 million.
Yeah,
I think he will get traded either at the draft or before next season begins, because I think they'll put the full court press on Cale Makar to come into the fray. And I think at that point they'll be more than happy to trade a Tyson Barrie and see what
not this season, not this upcoming
not this season, but the next season. 1920.
Okay.
What do you guys?
I mean, I know that Barrie has been somebody that's been mentioned in connection with Toronto a lot because he's a right-hand shot and he's a mobile, power play type of defenseman. I've always considered him the right-handed Jake Gardner because they play similar styles.
Maybe when they lose Gardner, they get Barrie.
Maybe. I mean, that's a distinct possibility. But, yeah, I mean, I think that Makar sort of fits in the same vein as him. So, and he'd be coming in on the ELC.
And he's better defensively. Let's be real about that.
And that would be a way of saving a ton of money. So, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. All right, guys. Good show. Well, we probably.
You know what? I'm going to let this one last one come in under the deadline because.
Okay.
If there's a Minnesota Wild fan in this group, we have to answer the question. So Edward asks, do we see the Minnesota Wild doing any trading? Like, I feel bad. Like, that's a desperate plea from a fan that knows that the team has cap issues. And now trading, would they trade Matt Dumba? No. Would they trade Spurgeon? I think there is a chance they would trade Spurgeon.
Spurgeon, I would agree.
Spurgeon's making $5 million.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So he's making $5 million. I think it's for another 2 years, this year or next year. So, yeah, they might trade Spurgeon to be able to pay Dumba, but I mean, whoever they value more, and I'm assuming they, if there's been talk about them trading either one of them. So I would.
I mean, look, Spurgeon's a 28-year-old defenseman.
He's small,
and he's He's 5'9". I think there would be teams that would want him.
He's the Western Conference Torrey Krug is what he is.
Yes. And I think there is a market for him.
Sure.
So I think there's a chance that he could get traded before the season begins. I don't think Dumba, because I think with Dumba's skating and the physical nature of his game, besides the fact that he's got a great shot, makes Spurgeon more available, I think.
Yeah.
More expendable.
Okay. Now I'm assuming we will not be on the air tomorrow because it is July 4th.
We're all just not going to do a show. Like
I'll be in a pool with a rum punch in my hand. Sorry, Mike.
We're not doing a show. If Eck does it, he's doing it himself.
Okay. So we're boycotting July 4th. There you go.
That's it.
So we'll be back next Monday for another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.